Have you ever wondered why true happiness often feels so elusive? The truth is, happiness isn't about avoiding struggles or chasing fleeting pleasures. It's about facing life's tough realities head-on and growing through them. Today, we're diving into 7 harsh truths that, once you accept, can lead you to a truly fulfilled and happy life. Stay with me until the end, because these truths might just transform your perspective forever. Life isn't fair, and it never will be. That's the cold, hard truth. It's a bitter pill to swallow. But once you accept it, you'll free yourself from the chains of frustration and self-pity. Too many people waste their lives waiting for fairness, as if the world owes them something. Let me tell you right now, the world doesn't owe you a single thing. You could do everything right, show up early, work hard, be kind, and still fall short while someone else cuts corners and gets ahead. That's life. And it's not about what's fair. It's about what you do with the hand you've been dealt. Think about this: a storm doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you're rich or poor, educated or not, prepared or unprepared. When the rain comes, it falls on everyone. Some people stand there complaining about the rain, hoping it'll stop. Others run for shelter. But then there are those who grab an umbrella, put on a coat, and keep moving forward. You've got to decide which one you'll be, because the storm isn't going to wait for you to figure it out. The world keeps spinning, whether you're ready or not. I'm not saying this to discourage you, I'm saying it to empower you. When you accept that life isn't fair, you stop wasting time fighting the wrong battles. You stop looking for excuses or people to blame. Instead, you start focusing on what you can control: your attitude, your effort, your decisions. That's where your power is. Because fairness is a distraction. It's a seductive lie that makes you think life is supposed to make sense, that it's supposed to reward you in equal measure for your hard work. But real life doesn't work like that. There are people who are born into wealth and privilege, and there are people who are born into poverty and struggle. That's reality. Some people start their race miles ahead, while others start in a hole they didn't dig. It's not fair, but it's what it is. And you can't change where you start, but you can damn well change where you finish. Because the truth is, the starting line doesn't determine the outcome. The grit, the determination, the refusal to quit, that's what matters. Let me tell you something: some of the most successful, most inspiring people you've ever heard of didn't start with an advantage. They started with a disadvantage. They started with the odds stacked against them. But instead of letting that break them, they let it build them. They let it fuel them. They turned every no into a yes through sheer persistence. They didn't sit around complaining about what wasn't fair. They got up every single day and did what needed to be done, even when it hurt, even when it didn't seem like it was paying off. And eventually it did. Not because life suddenly became fair, but because they refused to give up. Now, here's the part you need to understand: accepting that life isn't fair doesn't mean you accept defeat. It doesn't mean you stop trying or lower your standards. No, it means you stop expecting the world to hand you anything. It means you stop waiting for the perfect circumstances and start working with what you've got, right where you are. You don't need ideal conditions to succeed. You don't need everything to line up perfectly. What you need is the willingness to fight for what you want, even when the odds aren't in your favor. You've got to stop comparing your path to someone else's. Their journey isn't yours, and your journey isn't theirs. You might see someone flying ahead while you're crawling, and it's easy to feel like you're falling behind. But you don't know what battles they're fighting behind the scenes, just like they don't know yours. Focus on your own race. Focus on taking the next step, no matter how small, because progress isn't about how fast you move, it's about moving forward, period. The unfairness of life can either crush you or push you. It's your choice. You can let it make you bitter, or you can let it make you better. But know this: every time you rise above a setback, every time you push through a challenge, every time you keep going when it would have been easier to quit, you're proving to yourself and to the world that you are stronger than the circumstances around you. That's where real power comes from, not from wishing things were easier, but from showing yourself you can handle the hard things. Life doesn't play by your rules, but you can learn to play by its rules. You can learn to adapt, to adjust, to overcome. You can learn to stand tall in the face of unfairness and say, "This will not break me." And when you do that, you discover something incredible: the world may not be fair, but it's still full of opportunities for those who refuse to give up. It's full of moments waiting for someone like you, someone with the courage to fight, the grit to persevere, and the wisdom to know that fairness is overrated. What really matters is what you do with what you've been given. That's where greatness lives. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of success. It's a necessary ingredient. But too many people let failure paralyze them. They let the fear of falling short keep them from even trying. Let me tell you something, if you're afraid to fail, you're afraid to grow. Because growth, real growth, only happens when you step outside of your comfort zone and risk falling flat on your face. That's where the magic happens. That's where character is built. You don't build strength by staying comfortable, you build it by getting knocked down and finding the courage to get back up. Failure isn't permanent unless you decide to stay down. Think about that for a second. Failure is only final if you let it be. It's not a dead end, it's a detour. It's a chance to learn something you didn't know before. But too often, people take failure personally. They let it define them. They say, I failed, so I must be a failure. No. You failed because you tried, and trying is what separates the doers from the dreamers. The only people who never fail are the ones who never try. And if you're not failing, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. I want you to think about every great success story you've ever heard. Every single one of them is littered with failures. Look behind the curtain of greatness, and you'll find a pile of mistakes, missteps, and misfortunes. It's part of the process. You think the road to success is smooth? It's not. It's full of potholes, roadblocks, and wrong turns. But here's the thing, those roadblocks aren't there to stop you. They're there to test you, to see how badly you want it. They're there to force you to get creative, to dig deeper, to become better. When you fail, and you will fail, don't waste time feeling sorry for yourself. Don't sit around asking, why me? The answer is simple. Why not you? Failure doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care how talented you are, how hard you've worked, or how much you want it. It's coming for you, and when it does, you have a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. And trust me, the people who succeed aren't the ones who never fall, they're the ones who never quit. Here's the truth, failure is a mirror. It shows you who you really are. When everything's going your way, it's easy to feel confident, to feel strong. But when you're standing in the rubble of your plans, when nothing is working out the way you hoped, that's when you find out what you're made of. Will you crumble, or will you rise? Will you let the setback define you, or will you use it as fuel to come back stronger? That's the test. That's the moment that separates those who succeed from those who give up. Failure also teaches you in ways that success never can. Success is wonderful, but it doesn't force you to reflect. It doesn't push you to ask, what went wrong? And how can I do better next time? Failure does. It humbles you. It forces you to confront your weaknesses, to identify the gaps in your knowledge, to develop resilience. And when you come out the other side, you're not just better prepared, you're unstoppable. Because you've been through the fire, and you've proven to yourself that you can survive it. One of the most important lessons failure teaches is that your value isn't tied to your achievements. You are not your wins, and you are not your losses. Your worth is inherent. Failure doesn't diminish you, it refines you. It strips away your ego, your doubts, your fears, and leaves behind a stronger, wiser version of yourself. But you have to embrace it. You have to stop running from it and start learning from it. Because every time you fail, you're one step closer to success. Every mistake brings you closer to the breakthrough you've been working for. The truth is, the road to your dreams is going to be harder than you think. It's going to take longer than you expect. And there will be moments when you want to quit, when you'll question if it's all worth it. But those moments of doubt are where growth happens. That's when you dig deep and remind yourself why you started in the first place. That's when you tell yourself, I didn't come this far to only come this far. Every great achievement in your life will be preceded by failures. Not one, not two, but many. And each one will teach you something you need to know for the next chapter of your journey. Failure isn't the enemy. Fear of failure is. So don't let it stop you. Don't let it rob you of the chance to become everything you're capable of being. Because the only thing worse than failing is never trying at all. You can't control everything. You just can't. No matter how much you plan, how hard you work, or how prepared you think you are, there are always going to be things that are out of your hands. That's life. It's unpredictable. It's messy. And it doesn't always go the way you expect. But here's the thing, you don't need to control everything. You don't need life to go exactly the way you pictured it to find peace, to find joy, to find purpose. What you need is the strength to let go of what you can't control and focus on what you can. Control is an illusion we cling to because it makes us feel safe. It makes us feel like we've got it all figured out. But let me tell you something, no one has it all figured out. Not the smartest person in the room, not the richest, not the most successful. Everyone is dealing with their own uncertainties, their own curveballs, their own chaos. Life doesn't play by your rules. It doesn't care about your plans. It's going to throw things at you unexpected, inconvenient, uncomfortable things. And you have two choices: you can fight it, or you can flow with it. When you fight to control the uncontrollable, you exhaust yourself. You drain your energy trying to fix things that aren't yours to fix. You waste precious time worrying about outcomes you can't influence. And for what? What do you gain from all that stress, all that frustration, all that fear? Nothing. You're just running in circles trying to hold on to something that was never yours to hold. But when you let go, when you stop clinging to the need to control every detail, that's when you find freedom. That's when you find peace. Let me tell you a truth that's hard to accept. No matter how hard you try, you can't control other people. You can't control what they think, what they say, or what they do. You can't control how they treat you. And you can't control whether they'll stay or go. People are going to disappoint you. They're going to hurt you. They're going to make choices you don't agree with. But that's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. You don't have to carry their decisions, their mistakes, their issues on your back. That's not your burden to bear. You also can't control the past. You can't go back and change what's already happened. You can't undo the mistakes you made, the opportunities you missed, the pain you caused, or the pain you endured. The past is done. It's written. And no amount of regret, no amount of wishing things had been different will ever change that. What you can do is learn from it, grow from it, use it as fuel to become better, stronger, wiser. But don't let it chain you down. Don't let it keep you stuck in a moment that's already gone. And the future? That's another thing you can't control. You can plan for it. You can work toward it. But you can't predict it. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, and you never will. That's not your job. Your job is to show up today. Your job is to give your best effort right now, in this moment. Because the present is all you ever really have. Worrying about the future won't change it. It won't protect you from disappointment. It'll only rob you of the joy, the beauty, the opportunities that are right in front of you. But here's the good news. While you can't control everything, there are things you can control. You can control your attitude. You can control your effort. You can control how you respond to the things life throws at you. You can choose to be kind, even when the world feels cruel. You can choose to keep going, even when the path gets tough. You can choose to focus on what you have instead of what you lack. That's where your power lies. Not in controlling the world, but in controlling yourself. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you make room for something greater. You make room for growth. You make room for possibility. You make room for grace. You start to see that even though life doesn't always go according to plan, it still has a way of working out. Not always the way you imagine, but often in ways that are even better. But you have to let go. You have to trust the process. You have to believe that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. Because you will. You're stronger than you think, more resilient than you know, and more capable than you realize. Life will test you, but it won't break you not if you refuse to let it. People will disappoint you. That's a fact of life. No matter how much you care, no matter how much you give, no matter how much you expect someone to show up for you the way you've shown up for them, there will be moments when they let you down. It'll hurt. It'll hurt because you trusted them. You believed in them. You thought they'd do better, be better. But here's the truth, people are flawed. Every single one of us. And if you go through life expecting perfection from others, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. You've got to understand something. People aren't always going to meet your expectations. Sometimes it's because they can't. They don't have the tools, the strength, or the understanding to give you what you're looking for. Sometimes it's because they don't want to. And that's hard to accept, isn't it? It's hard to accept that someone you care about might not care the same way, might not prioritize you the way you prioritize them. But that's reality. People have their own battles, their own flaws, their own limitations. And sometimes those things get in the way of them being who you need them to be. When someone disappoints you, the first thing you feel is pain, maybe even anger. You ask yourself, how could they do this to me? How could they not see how much I needed them? But let me tell you something, that pain, that anger, that disappointment is not about them. It's about you. It's about the story you've built in your mind of who they are or who you wanted them to be. And when they don't live up to that story, it feels like a betrayal. But it's not a betrayal, it's life. You see, we put people on pedestals. We create these perfect images of them, these expectations that are impossible to live up to. And when they fall short, we act surprised. But the truth is, they're human. Just like you, they make mistakes. They have moments of weakness. They have flaws that sometimes overshadow their best intentions. And that's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they're human. One of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn is how to forgive someone who's disappointed you. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what they did. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt. Forgiveness is about letting go of the weight you're carrying. Because when you hold on to that disappointment, that anger, that pain, it doesn't hurt them, it hurts you. It eats away at your peace, your happiness, your ability to move forward. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It's saying, I'm not going to let what you did keep me from living my life fully. Now, forgiving doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you let people walk all over you. You've got to set boundaries. You've got to know your worth. If someone continually shows you that they can't or won't respect you, you have every right to protect your space. You have every right to say, I love you, but I can't allow this in my life. That's not bitterness. That's self-respect. But here's another truth sometimes. The disappointment you feel has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with your own expectations. Sometimes we expect people to fill holes in us that they were never meant to fill. We look to them for validation, for happiness, for security, and when they can't deliver, we blame them. But no one else is responsible for your happiness. No one else is responsible for your worth. That's something you've got to find within yourself. People will disappoint you, but they'll also surprise you. They'll also lift you up in ways you didn't see coming. They'll show you kindness when you least expect it, love when you most need it, and strength when you think all hope is lost. But you've got to give them the space to be who they are, not who you want them to be. You've got to learn to accept their imperfections, just like you hope they'll accept yours. And don't forget to look in the mirror, because sometimes you're the one doing the disappointing. You're the one falling short. It's easy to point fingers, to focus on how others have let you down. But take a moment to ask yourself, have I done the same? Have I hurt someone who was counting on me? We all have. That's part of being human, too. And just as you need forgiveness from others, you need to offer it to them. Life is too short to carry grudges, to dwell on what people didn't do, to let disappointment steal your joy. People will disappoint you, but they'll also teach you. They'll teach you about yourself, about love, about resilience. And every time someone falls short, you get the chance to decide how you're going to respond, with anger or with grace, with bitterness or with understanding. That choice is yours. You've got to stop comparing yourself to others. I mean it. You're wasting time, energy, and joy looking at someone else's life and measuring it against your own. For what? To feel inadequate? To feel like you're not enough? Let me tell you something, comparison is a thief. It steals your focus, your peace, your gratitude. It robs you of the ability to see your own blessings because you're too busy counting someone else's. And for what? Their journey isn't yours. Their path isn't yours. What's meant for them was never meant for you. The world is louder now than it's ever been. Social media, television, magazines, everywhere you look, someone is showcasing their highlight reel. And that's all it is, a highlight reel. You're seeing the best moments of their life, carefully curated, filtered, and presented for the world to admire. But you don't see the struggle behind the scenes. You don't see the heartbreak, the late nights, the sacrifices. You don't see the full picture. So here you are, comparing your behind-the-scenes mess to their polished perfection. That's not fair to you. That's not real. When you compare yourself to others, you're playing a game you can't win. Because there's always going to be someone who seems to have more. More money, more success, more beauty, more love. But what you don't see is that they're looking at someone else too. They're comparing themselves just like you are. It's a never-ending cycle, and no one ever comes out on top. So why play? Why spend your life chasing an image that isn't even real? Why let someone else's life define the value of your own? You've got to understand that your journey is yours and yours alone. No one else can walk your path. No one else can fight your battles. No one else can achieve your dreams. And your path, it's not supposed to look like anyone else's. It's not supposed to follow the same timeline, the same milestones. You might get there slower than someone else or faster. You might take a detour or two. That doesn't make your journey any less meaningful. That doesn't make your destination any less valid. The problem with comparison is that it blinds you to your own gifts. It makes you forget what you bring to the table. You spend so much time looking at someone else's plate that you don't even see the feast in front of you. You've got talents, strengths, qualities that are unique to you. But if you're constantly measuring them against someone else's, you'll never see them for what they are. You'll never appreciate them. And if you can't appreciate what you've got, how are you ever going to use it to its fullest potential? Comparison also breeds resentment. Resentment toward others and resentment toward yourself. You start to feel bitter about what someone else has, and you start to feel like you're not enough. But that bitterness, that self-doubt, it's poison. It doesn't hurt the person you're comparing yourself to, it only hurts you. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you small. It keeps you from becoming the person you're meant to be. Instead of comparing, celebrate. Celebrate what others have achieved and know that their success doesn't take away from your own. Someone else's light doesn't dim yours. In fact, the more you celebrate others, the more light you bring into your own life. And celebrate yourself too. Celebrate how far you've come, what you've overcome, what you've built. Because no one else has walked your path. No one else has faced your challenges. No one else is you. Gratitude is the antidote to comparison. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack, you start to see your life for the blessing it is. You start to realize that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And you stop worrying about what everyone else is doing because you're too busy appreciating your own journey. You've got to trust the process. Trust that what's meant for you will find you in its own time. Trust that you're enough just as you are. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need to keep up with anyone. The only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. That's it. Focus on your growth, your progress, your journey. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You're not in competition with anyone. Life isn't a race. It's not about who gets there first or who has the most. It's about living fully, authentically, and unapologetically. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, not a watered-down version of someone else. So stop looking around. Stop measuring yourself against others. Look within. That's where your power is. That's where your joy is. That's where your life is waiting for you to embrace it. Failure is not the end. It's not a period at the end of your sentence. It's a comma, a pause, a moment to catch your breath before you continue. But too often, we treat failure like it's final, like it's a death sentence for our dreams, our hopes, our ambitions, and it's not. Failure is a teacher. It's a mirror held up to show us where we went wrong, where we need to grow, and where we need to dig deeper. But you've got to stop fearing it. You've got to stop letting it paralyze you, because failure is not your enemy. It's part of the process. The world is full of people who never tried because they were afraid to fail, afraid of what people would say, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of feeling the sting of rejection. But let me tell you something, the people who succeed, the ones who truly make something of their lives, they're not the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail the most. They fail over and over and over again, but they keep going. They get back up. They learn. They adapt. and eventually they break through. Failure isn't comfortable. It stings. It bruises your pride. It makes you question yourself, your choices, your abilities. But comfort isn't where growth happens. Growth happens in the struggle. Growth happens when you're pushed to your limits and forced to find a way through. Every failure is a lesson. Every failure is a stepping stone. It's not a sign to quit. It's a sign that you're in the game, that you're trying for something bigger than yourself. Failure is proof that you're alive, that you're moving, that you're not standing still. But here's the thing, failure only defines you if you let it. It only becomes your story if you stop writing. You've got to remember that failure is an event, not a person. It's something that happens to you, not something you are. Too many people let failure shape their identity. They fail once, and they tell themselves, I'm a failure. No, you're not. You're someone who tried and learned, and is now better equipped to try again. Failure is part of your journey, not your destination. You've got to shift your perspective on failure. Stop looking at it as something to avoid and start seeing it as an opportunity. Because failure is where you discover your resilience. It's where you uncover strengths you didn't know you had. It's where you learn what you're made of. When you fail, you have a choice. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. And the people who let it build them, they come out stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. Think about the greats, the people you admire, the ones who've achieved things most of us can only dream of. Do you think they got there without failing? No, they failed spectacularly, publicly, repeatedly. But they didn't quit. They didn't let the fear of failing stop them from trying. And that's what separates them from the rest. They understood that failure is just a part of the process. It's not a roadblock, it's a stepping stone. You've got to stop worrying about what other people think. Half the reason we're so afraid of failure is because we're afraid of being judged. But let me tell you something, people are going to judge you no matter what you do. You could play it safe, never take a risk, never step outside your comfort zone, and people will still have something to say. So why not fail trying to reach for something great? Why not risk it all for a chance to live the life you've always dreamed of? Because at the end of the day, their opinions don't matter. What matters is how you see yourself. Failure is where innovation happens. It's where breakthroughs are born. Think about it, some of the greatest inventions, the most life-changing discoveries came from failure. People trying, messing up, trying again, and eventually finding a way. Failure is where creativity lives. It's where new ideas are sparked. It's where the magic happens. But you'll never know that magic if you're too afraid to step into the arena and risk falling flat on your face. And when you fail, don't just move on. Reflect on it. Ask yourself, what did I learn from this? What can I take with me into the next attempt? Failure without reflection is just wasted pain. But when you take the time to understand it, to grow from it, that's when it becomes powerful. That's when it becomes fuel for your fire. You've got to believe in yourself enough to risk failing. You've got to trust that no matter how many times you fall, you've got the strength to get back up. Because failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of success. It's the foundation it's built on. So don't run from it. Don't fear it. Embrace it. Let it teach you. Let it strengthen you. Let it propel you forward. These truths may be hard to swallow, but accepting them is the first step toward a happier, more meaningful life. Embrace the reality of life, and you'll find that happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you create. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to reflect on these truths. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, happiness starts with you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more life-changing insights. Let's continue this journey toward happiness together.